Hey, it's Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo, and this is going to be a little bit of a different video. I'm actually just going to be, well, sharing my full ratings for everything I have, at least everything I have since the start of the BoardGameCo YouTube channel. I have not gone back for all time. At some point, I may try to go further back, but we'll see what I do. Either way, what am I talking about? So, to begin with, I'm talking about this over here. If you look over here, what you're looking at on the screen is going to be a Notion board. Notion is a software similar to Trello. Trello is a software where you basically operate as a Kanban board. Kanban, not the board game. Kanban is a style of board where you can basically move things back and forth from board to board like so. So you can grab different things and move them to different boards, and Notion gives you an incredible degree of customization in terms of how you can actually manage that, which is why I moved away from Trello to Notion. Not an ad for Notion, just explaining why I'm using Notion in case you're familiar with Trello, and I can avoid all the comments, hey, Trello's great. It is great. I used it for years, and I moved it over here. So, basically what's going on here is I figured I regularly get comments, questions, hey, do you have a place where you rate your games publicly, this, that, whatever. I don't consistently use BoardGameGeek in terms of managing my game collection. I think it's great for things like ratings. For other things, it doesn't, well, first of all, my rating scale doesn't work because I rate on a scale of 1 to 5, not on a scale of 1 to 10. So, for a variety of reasons, I don't track my collection in BoardGameGeek. This is not my collection board either. That is a separate board that I'm not sharing yet just because it's just a bigger mess. I need to clean things up. But effectively, this is my review board. I'm going to walk you through my process, what I do, how this board is managed, and there's going to be a link down below to this board so you can go ahead and jump into it. Additionally, in every single review, I will have a link to this board as well as a link to this video for those who want a walkthrough of how to use this board because I'm making this publicly available. You will not have the exact same functionality you see over here. Some of these buttons will be different because you're going to have this one, which is this is going to be the what's it called? Private access link that will be available. You will be able to get most of the functionality. We'll go through how that works shortly. But going back to this effectively, let me go ahead and hide my face so you can see all the columns. Effectively, you have, oh, I typed in 3 there, either way. So what you're going to have over here is you're going to have the various columns. The first column is going to be where things go. Just to begin with, this is where things go that I want to review, whether it's a game I played recently that I'm really enjoying, whether a publisher sent me a game. This is the column that things will go to as soon as I establish they want to be reviewed. Column 2 over here, low priority, is where I put things that I'm not in a rush to review for one reason or another. So for example, Zombie Teens Evolution is a game that I'm not in a rush to review it because I haven't finished playing Zombie Teen Kids, which I need to finish doing that first. Something like Alter Quest, I really need to get a review out of it, but it's a lot of time and energy to go through that one. I want to really do it proper justice, and there's no rush for it, so I put it over here. Either way, some things will go over here when there's a lower priority for any particular reason, usually just my own judgment call as far as why. So that's going to be those 2 columns. From there, we have played. This is going to be the column. Let's go ahead and pop my face up now that I'm not blocking the columns. Whoops. Oh, played is still being blocked. Let's hide it again. Played is going to be basically the column I put things in as soon as I have a play of these games. And in fact, some of these, by the way, should be moved around. A big thing with this list is it will not always be 100% accurate. So just looking over here, Drunigar Apocalypse, I've actually continued playing it and filmed the review already. Filmed the review, so I'm going to move it to ready for review over here. Most of these do look correct, though, past that. But this is basically going to be where something has been played, but I do not feel I'm ready to review it just yet. Something worth noting, I actually have a video coming out with King of Average about my review process. In general, games require, for me, I mean, everyone's going to be subjective and this and that. For myself, I generally play games anywhere between I would say anywhere between 2 to 7 times before I review it. Games I don't like often get fewer plays. I'm not in a rush to dive for the 3rd or 4th time into a game that I didn't enjoy the first 2 times. But in general, it's going to be anywhere between 2 and 7 plays. Legacy games will be closer to, campaign games will be closer to 7 plus plays, so somewhere in that range. But that's basically, played is where it goes if it has at least 1 play, and ready to review is where it goes as soon as I'm ready to review the game, but either haven't reviewed it yet or haven't published said review yet. Speaking of which, Drunigar Apocalypse, like I said already, this one, at the time of me filming, at the time of me filming, this has already gone up on YouTube, but when this list is being, sorry, my bad. At the time of you watching this, Drunigar Apocalypse is already on YouTube. At the time of me filming, it is not. The video has been filmed, it has been reviewed, but it's not yet published. Over here, let's say Great Wall. Great Wall is a good example over here of a game that I have to move from the ready to review column to one of these 4 columns, which we'll explain shortly. So let's go ahead and explain those columns. We have kept. Kept is going to be games that I reviewed and kept, but they showed up in a dedicated or mostly dedicated video. Mostly dedicated often means a play this, not that video. Left is the same idea. It's showed up in a dedicated or mostly dedicated video. Kept with no review and left with no review are going to be slightly different aspects. Those are going to be games that showed up in content but did not show up in a dedicated video. Usually, more specifically, they showed up in either a games leaving the collection video or a games I added to my collection video. I have not gone through all my top 10 lists to find every single game I've ever mentioned. Rather, it's going to specifically be, like I said already, reviews, play this, not that, games leaving the collection, games added to the collection. I've gone through every single one of those since the start of the channel to get this as up to date on all of that. So let's go ahead and take the Great Wall and show you how this works. The Great Wall, I'm going to go over here and throw in my original rating, which is a 4. I'm going to put my current rating, which is a 4. That's because I just reviewed it. That's not actually going to change yet. Over time, I will be tracking not every individual change in my rating, but I will track my original rating on a game as well as the current rating. Also, these are 3 columns that I don't perfectly track right now. I do track the video date, but the arrive date is when a game either arrived in my collection. Ideally, I haven't actually started doing that yet. The due/Kickstarter date is when I'm doing a prototype, and there's a due date. Again, I should be tracking that. I don't right now. I may get rid of these columns over time. The expansion column over here is something that I track if it's an expansion. I usually don't use that either. This might go away. Notion gives you an incredible degree of flexibility, so I can create or remove columns as I see fit, but I probably will remove that column. Either way, let's go ahead and do the video date. The video date, I believe the Great Wall went up on the 13th over here. So we're going to go ahead and punch that in there, and then we're going to go ahead and just take it and drag it over to kept. This is a game I kept, which brings us to the kept column. If you see over here, you're going to see, and this is for, again, since the start of the channel, we have 130 games. You can see that at the top. We have 130 games in the kept column and 67 in the left column, which would be like, Alex, you keep most of what you review. Sort of. I mean, sort of to a degree, yes. Because what you're going to see over here, the flip side, is kept with no review is 18, left with no review is 121. Basically, I am, and we've talked about this in the channel before, we've talked about the nature of the trend towards positivity. I am not in a rush to review every single little thing I didn't love. I generally review things either when it's a Kickstarter that I'm trying to cover, when the publisher sent me a game to review, or when I am biased towards liking the game because I'd rather share and talk about the thing I really enjoyed than the thing I didn't enjoy. That said, even then, this drift towards positivity is a little bit more a middle ground than it might look, because if you look over here, let's just look at 4 recent examples. Bantam West, Valfarian, Soul Raiders, and Distilled. Those are great, relevant recent examples. Those are all games I want to keep and continue exploring, especially since all of them are in the prototype phase and I expect more changes on those games. Depending on how those games develop over time, those may or may not stay in my collection. Soul Raiders, I saw a taste for the game, but I would need to see more to know if it's going to stay in my collection. Distilled, they're making changes that I like the game already, but they're making changes that I believe will make the game better, but until I actually try those, there's only so much really I can do as far as saying whether it is or isn't a game for me. Valfarian, same idea. I like the game. I don't know if they're going to be adding this. The Kickstarter has more content, more modules. I don't know if those are enough to make me keep it or not. Bantam West as well. Bantam West is continuously in development. I have not been able to play with all the new changes they made. So very often, especially with prototypes, it's going to be harder for me to make a firm judgment call as to where a game goes. I slide it to where I think it goes, but they may move over time, especially as the game develops. And that could be the reverse as well. I could put something in the left column and then have it show up in the kept column just as easily. That's going to be what we see over here as far as these general things. So let's go ahead and continue going through this. So going ahead, we can see 130 games we kept. We can see left 67. Kept with no review is going to be 18. Left with no reviews 121. Just, quickly scanning. We can see a whole bunch of games, and again, you can go through this yourself whenever you want. You're going to see up here what's visible is the current rating of a game, but you can filter to whatever you want. That's going to be the filter aspect. This is an important part to talk about 2 things that are going to be limitations you have as someone who's viewing this as someone who can do some stuff, but not everything. To begin with, you should be able to comment on any individual game. You should be able to click and comment. That you're gonna have to have a logged in Notion account, I believe, but you should have the ability to actually comment on games. That said, use it. I don't know if I'm gonna keep the comment feature on forever. It depends how it's used. I would imagine the most common thing is something that's ready for review or something that's played or something in these columns. If you want to see content around certain games, you can kind of say, hey, I'd love to see a thing in this. I have no idea if I'm going to keep that feature. For right now, I'm leaving it open, but we'll see how it actually goes. Secondly, there's going to be an aspect of filtering. I'm going to show you how filtering works shortly. But I think the important thing to know about filtering is you cannot filter on this current page. You would have to create a duplicate. Again, you have to have a Notion account. You'd have to create a duplicate of this page at any given moment in time, and then you're going to have to, well, filter it from there. So that may or may not be worth the trouble for you. That is your thing to determine if you care. Again, these numbers are being added. I don't know what's going on there. Anyways, let's go ahead and filter to some things over here to give you an idea why you might want to filter. So let's go ahead and filter for, let's say 2021 reviews. Let's go ahead and add a filter. You can create filter groups as well, but again, that's going to be complicated when you're doing it with my board. I'm going to go ahead and filter to video date is on or after. Is on or after. And I'm going to go ahead and filter to January. There we go. Boom. That's going to be everything in 2021. So now you can see in 2021, we kept 79 games. 29 left. 4 were kept with no review, and 46 left with no review. So that's going to be a whole bunch of games over there. Again, the full balance, if you look, is 46 plus 29 is going to be 75, right? That sounds right? No, 30 plus, 75 games left, and 4 plus 79, or 83 games kept. So it's a little bit of a weird balance because half the games in the kept column aren't even here yet. They're prototypes. But it's, we'll see how it actually plays out over time. In theory, those numbers should generally line up what was kept and what left. Past that, let's go ahead and filter for, let's say, 5s. This is a good time where you can filter to see, how often is Alex rating a game of 5? Always, all the time. Let's go to the original rating because that's the one you're going to see anyway. I do plan on going through my updated ratings at different points in the future, but for right now, it's going to be just original rating. And we have 14. That's insanity. 14 games. So it's a little bit biased. And in fact, you can see here 2 of them left that were 5s. So let's go ahead and go through what that means. Now, first of all, if we've talked about, hey, Alex, I thought you only rated like 7 games of 5. Sort of, because a lot of these are going to be play this, not that's. Cyclades, Innis, Spirit Island. No, Spirit Island wasn't. Everdell. A bunch of these games are going to be Zombicide Black Plague. A bunch of these games, Terraforming Mars, are going to be games that showed up in Play This, Not That videos, where I talked about, for instance, I talked about Zombicide 2nd Edition versus Zombicide Black Plague. And to that end, because they showed up in Play This Not That videos, I did put what my rating of the game is. And some of these are going to be tricky, because some of these aren't games I necessarily rated back in the day, so I'm trying to remember, when I first played Zombicide Black Plague, did I love it? And the answer is absolutely yes, I did. Although, speaking of which, Everdell, I mistakenly put my current rating of Everdell. My current rating of Everdell is a 5. My original rating of it was probably a 3 or a 4. I'm going to put it as a 3. I got rid of Everdell. I actually got rid of Everdell. Everdell grew on me. So some of these things are going to be, whenever I'm trying to put a rating on something that is not current, that I didn't rate, there's going to be some degree of judgment call as I try to remember how I felt about the game and hopefully remember correctly. But yeah, there's going to be some degree of just bias towards whatever my current impression is. Cyclades I loved when I first played it. I love that game. Innis I loved when I first played it. But yeah, there's going to be some of these games over here are going to be games that are original rating is a 5, but taken to the grain of salt, there's no current review for the game. Speaking of which, one thing I want to add that it will take time, it's not there yet, I want to add the ability to have the actual published date of a game. What did I rate the 2021 games? Not so much what did I rate games in 2021. I want to add the ability to filter based on that as well. I think that's useful and relevant information. But before we go through that, let's go ahead and look through, so we have 13 games I rated 5. Oh, let's cover these 2 over here. The 2 that left with no review, Raw and Domain. I loved those games when I first played them. And even when they left, they were still solid 4s, but those are games I've been playing for years, and I don't have the desire to continuously pull them out, despite the fact that I really do enjoy those games. I've overplayed them. Sometimes it happens. There's only so many times you can watch Gladiator. That's not true. That's a blatant lie. There's no limit to the amount of times you can watch Gladiator. But for some games, there's going to be a limit to how often you can play them. I have played Raw and Domain for a very, 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 very long time. So that's going to be these over here. Past that, what else we have? So let's go ahead and filter. So we have 13 5s. Let's go ahead and let's see how many 4s we have. We have 40 4s in this column alone, plus another 3, plus 1, plus 11. That's how many 4s we have. A lot of games that I originally rated a 4, and again, something showing up in Play This Not That may be older games that I didn't currently review, but you can go ahead and check all these out and see how these go. Then 3s, let's check how many 3s we have. So we have 43, 44, 55 4s. So we have 55 4s. Let's go ahead and filter for 3s. If we filter for 3s, we have 23, that's 46. 46 plus 3 is 49, plus 25 is 69, 74 threes. Again, I've talked about this before. I do believe threes are my most common rating. Threes are good games, and often, in general, my thing with that, I've talked about this before, fives are games I definitely keep fives. It's not a question. A five effectively has to drift away from being a five for it to not be in my collection. I don't think I've ever gotten rid of a five. Fours are going to be games I generally keep, but with some exceptions. So, are there any current fours that left? There's a whole bunch of things that used to be fours and faded. That does happen over time. No, these are we're currently on threes. I'm sorry, we're currently on threes. But fours are generally going to be games that I generally will keep with some exceptions. Zombicide 2nd Edition is a 4 that I got rid of because I prefer Zombicide Black Plague. That's going to be a fairly common thing where I prefer a different game. Rising Sun is a 4 for me. I really like it. But every time I play it, I'd rather be playing Blood Rage. So fours are generally going to be games that have left because of, fours are generally games I'm keeping. And if they've left, it's usually because there's some direct equivalent that I prefer playing. Which brings us to threes. Threes are going to be the ones where you can start seeing there's much more of a drift. Threes generally fall into two categories. Some threes are games I keep because Red Rising actually have to update. That's going to be leaving shortly. But some of these games, threes are going to be games that I either keep because of a different crowd. Zombie Kids, Mia London. Those are going to be games that are, children's games that I really enjoy. Truffle Shuffle, it's a family weight game. I'm doing that because of that. In this case, again, we're filtering based on original rating right now. So that's why something like Everdell will show up here that you just saw me change. Anything else that's a 3? These Bantam West Alfarian Soul Raiders Distilled, I'm curious where they're going to go. We'll see on that sense. Bone to Pick, I enjoy, but I don't love it. I enjoy it. They're often going to be games that fit a specific niche in my collection that I think I'll still get played. It's either light enough, short enough. I would say that you're very rarely going to see games that are heavier and longer that are 3s. If a game is going to be taking up a full game night, it cannot be a 3. It has to be a 4 or greater. For the most part. Might be exceptions. We'll see how that goes. But for the most part, 3s are where they're going to leave my collection a lot. But that doesn't mean they're a bad game. It means that in the scheme of the different games that I'm playing, they are good but not the best games. Then 2s. Let's go ahead and look at 2s. 2s are going to be very, very often exceptions. We'll go ahead and see what we've got there. Yeah, you can see a bunch of 2s. Some I've kept because Ricky or someone else wants them. A bunch of them will left, and then a bunch of them will leave with no review. And then 1s are going to be very rare. Let's see if we have any 1s. We should have some 1s. And again, this board is public, so you can look at everything. 1s are going to be over here. So there's only a handful of 1s. There's really not a lot of 1s as far as that. We can remove the filters and go through that. And that is going to be my ratings board. Anything I play or review should show up here. Anything that's covered in any way should show up here. Lastly, anything else worth mentioning? I mean, yeah, in general, if you see anything that looks off or wrong, like King of 12. King of 12 is another one. You see, this is another one. I got to go ahead and punch up the video day. Was the 13th. The original rating was a 3. The current rating is a 3. And we can go ahead and drag it into the ready to review to the kept column. So again, in general, you will often see things in the wrong column. Don't overthink it. Sometimes that just will happen. Very often, it's just the nature of trying to track a board and be on top of it. I will be as on top of this board as I'm able to. It doesn't mean I'll be on top of absolutely everything. Lastly, link in the description down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is more just a general, if you want a regular place where you can browse my current ratings, I may go through this and start trying to add things for all time. It's going to be hard. I have to figure out the best way to do it because I don't want to do it based on what's in my collection alone, because that would give you an unbiased towards a higher rating look. I mean, if I took everything in my collection and I didn't take the things that left my collection, it would be hard to go through it. So I need to think through the best way to actually go through all that information. If I do, then great, I will share it with you. And if not, then this will just be a list of things since the start of the BoardGameCo channel. Until next time, I am Alex Radcliffe from BoardGameCo. Thanks for watching, and as always, have a good one.